this stuff. Hopefully it's not completely new to you. Okay, so we are, if you weren't here Friday, I will put the video on for the first section up on Google Classroom. Codes are up there, so get on sometime later and join the group. Okay, let's look at a couple more properties. Identity. Okay, if we think about identity, it is yourself. Like health class, you talk about your personal identity. So identity is yourself. So we want to get back. How do I want to word this? Get back to self, I guess, is how I think of identity. So if you kind of think about what these words mean, it's kind of easier to think, okay, this is how to represent it. If I think of addition, what do I add to something to get back to itself? So A plus what gives me back itself? Don't overthink this. No, adding. 0. So what do I add to itself to get back itself? I add 0 to something. You're good. I add 0 to something and it gives me back itself. Now multiplication, what times something gives me back itself? 1. There's the 1. Okay? So if you think about identity as getting back to itself, common sense, you know this stuff. You know adding 0 gets the same thing, multiplying by 1 gets the same thing. Inverse. Fancy math word that means what? Opposite. So when I think of inverse, we're using opposite. So if you see opposite, then your first thought will be the inverse property. So if I have A, this is addition, what is the opposite of A? Negative A. So if I add A and negative A, if I add 2 plus negative 2 or 4 plus negative 4, that will get me 0. Yeah, it cancels out. So if I'm adding a positive and a negative of the same number, they cancel out, it gives me 0. Multiplication is a little trickier. A times, now if I think about multiplying, what's the opposite of A if I'm multiplying? It's 1 over A. This one's kind of tricky. Okay? So the inverse of A, if I'm thinking about multiplication, is division. So it's 1 over A. Now this is also kind of tricky to think about. What is A times 1 over A?
0.
Think about it this way. What is 2 times a half? 1. So the A's cancel, so you get 1. That one's trickier to think about. Okay, please feel free to interrupt me if you need to. I'm going to kind of quick do this because you've seen it before, but please interrupt me and I can slow down. Use common sense. 0, product. Product means what? Multiply. So we are multiplying by 0. I know some of these are tricky. I get that. But kind of use common sense. 0 product. Multiplying by 0. So anything multiplied by 0 is 0. And that means anything. If I have like x squared plus 1 times 0, that is also 0. So 0 product multiplying by 0 gives me 0. You know that. Okay, distributive. We know distributive pretty well, I would say, I think. If I have A times B plus C, if I have A out in front, so if I have a number in front of the parentheses, that will give me what? AB plus AC. You take the number in front and you distribute, you multiply it by everything in the parentheses. If I look at a concrete example, it's hard for me to kind of think about it in terms of letters. If I have negative 7 times x minus 3, and I want to distribute it, that will give me plus 21. Yep. Negative 7 times x, negative 7x. Negative 7 times negative 3, positive 21. If I had to guess, distributive is probably the easiest for you guys out of all of them. You hit that hard in middle school. Okay. Reflexive. What word looks like reflexive? Reflection, reflect. So I think of the word reflect. So it is, think of a mirror. If you look in a mirror, you see back yourself. So reflection is A equals A. Or if you're in like a scary movie and you look in the mirror, and I'm always afraid like when I'm like getting in my car and I look in the mirror and there's going to be like someone with a knife or something. You know, you've seen those movies. Anyway, I digress. But so reflexive, reflect. You're going to look in the mirror and see back yourself. A equals A. Do you think I'm just paranoid? You guys always kind of think that. Like, if you're getting in your car by yourself, you're always, like, afraid you're going to look in the rearview mirror and there's going to be, like... Yeah, you do. You do. Okay. So, another example. 17y equals 17y. So, reflection, reflexive. You get back itself. And then symmetric looks like the word symmetry. Okay, so you did symmetry in elementary school. You can flip it across itself. So symmetry means you can flip it and it's the same thing. I always remember there, if you take a butterfly picture and split it in half with a dotted line, you can flip it across and it's the same thing. Right, not if the wings ripped off. Thank you, David. Yes. If A equals B, for that insight. If A equals B, then B equals A. Okay, reflexive, symmetric. You can flip it across and it's the same thing. So if A equals B, then you can flip it and B equals A. If 3x equals 15, if we have that equation, 3x equals 15, then we can also switch the order and put 15 equals 3x and it's the same thing. So the order, and you kind of did this when you do equations. Some of you have the x on the left and some of you have it on the right. Same thing. Okay, one last one, transitive. Yep, it's the questions we don't do in this packet. It's the questions that it's in this packet. It's what we don't finish in the notes. Okay, transitive. What word do I use when I think it's train, maybe? I don't know. So, if A equals B, I don't know why I have a comma there. You don't need one there, but it's not a big deal. If A equals B and B equals C, it is there. If A equals B and B equals C, you might remember this one too, then A equals C, yeah. If you have two things that equal the same thing, then those two things are equal. If A equals B and B also equals C, since A and C both equal B, then A equals C. I did. Well, that's okay. Okay, let's try this one. If 7 equals the square root of 49, which we know, square root of 49 simplifies down to 7. If 7 is equal to the square root of 49, and the square root of 49 equals 6 plus 1, which we know is true. We're just kind of explaining 7 to be 6 plus 1. Then the transitive property tells me what? 7 equals 6 plus 1. Okay? So transitive you've seen before as well. Okay, let's look at a couple of these questions, and then we'll move on. Let's look at, which one? 6. Let's look at 6. 8q plus 0 equals 8q. So if I have 8q plus 0 equals 8q, look at your whatever. I don't teach English, so. Okay, it is okay though. Am I the only one that gets those confused? Probably because I'm an adult and we all know a letter. I don't get them confused, I just say the other one. No, an adult. I would assume not many people confuse them since we're all through kindergarten. But anyway. Okay, so 8k plus 0 equals 8k. So look at your properties, and I am keeping it itself. I am keeping 8k. It's equal to 8k. So if I keep it itself, that is the identity, and I am adding 0. So this is the additive. You just put ADD identity. You can abbreviate if you want to. This is the additive identity. I'm getting it back to itself. That's identity, and I'm adding. So additive identity. I'll do a couple more with you. 8. If I look at 8, 4/9 times 9/4 equals 1. Well, look at all your properties, and here's a hint. Look at one. Look at a property that gives me equal to 1. So as I go through my property, what property gives me equal to 1? Yes. Inverse. It is the multiplicative, because I am multiplying. You can just put MULT. The multiplicative NIV is fine. And they are inverses because the fraction is flipped. 4/9 and 9/4. So it's the multiplicative inverse. I'll do one more. Pick one.
ABC.
4?
3.
Let's look at 4. If I look at 4, negative 3 times x plus a is equal to negative 3x minus 24. Thoughts? Distributive. Yep, you're taking the number in front, and I'm multiplying it through the parentheses. Any questions on those? Okay, cross out the closure. We're not doing that section. So we didn't do it last year. So cross out that closure box, rectangle. Let me look at a couple more sections. Okay, square roots and cube roots. These won't take very long, but let me go through a couple with you. Let's look at 4, just some quick review. If I am taking the square root of a fraction, the easiest way is to split it up and take the square root of the top over the square root of the bottom. So if I'm taking the square root of a fraction, take the square root of the top, square root of the bottom separately, and then simplify it. Don't make it harder than it is because it looks weird. What's the square root of 16?
4.
4. Square root of 49? 7. If you don't have your perfect squares memorized, don't freak out. That's why there's calculators literally in front of you. Let me show you real quick how to do it on a calculator. If I want to do the square root of 16, if you struggle with the perfect squares, then use the calculator, that's fine. To get a square root, anybody remember? No, I have it. Am I remember? Yeah, it's the x squared. It's the x squared button. You have to press second first. Do you not need one?
No, it's just right there.
Oh, well, I stole from that one.
You did?
Yeah, there's only 3 in there. So if I want to do the square root of 16, look up real quick. You have to press second and then the x squared button because the square root is right above it. So second x squared, square root of 16 is 4. If you know it in your head, great. If not, use a calculator. It's fine.
Can you do that again?
Second x squared button.
Okay.
How do you do it, cube?
I'll show you in a second. Yes. So if you have perfect squares memorized, good for you. Write them down. If not, use a calculator. Okay, let's look at cubed. 5 through 8 are cubed roots. Let's look at cubed roots. The easiest way to do a cubed root is, okay, you're going to press second.
3 seconds squared.
The second, yes, okay, that's right. Thank you. Okay, so cubed root. You're going to press 3 second, but then we're not doing the x squared because that's the square root. We're going to do the button above it. It looks like an upside down V because it has, so it's going to look like that. So it's kind of different. So you're going to press 3 because we're doing the third root. You're going to press second and then that upside down V button. So it looks something like that. And then 27, which is 3. I'll do one more with you to practice because that's harder. 8. We'll do 8. That's fine. Let's look at 8. So I would practice typing this in your calculator because this is different. He taught me. Wasn't sure how to do it. I was kind of just faking it until you told me, and I figured it out. Okay, so third root of 100. 3 second upside down v. So that tells you the third root of 1,000, which is 10. So get used to using calculators. I am fine with that. Use them in this class. That's why they are literally right in front of you. Yes?
I was always taught to never use a calculator.
No, I'm teaching wrong. No, you're fine. You will have them with you on your phone or somewhere, so use them. Okay, any questions? Okay, let me go through one more section and we'll let you start some homework. Okay, evaluating expressions. So let's look. Order of operations is basically what we're going to do. Order of operations, what do we use to remember order of operations? PEMDAS. Now when you write PEMDAS, kind of separate it. There's like 4 different categories. So P, E, M, D, A, S. M, D are together and A, S are together. I'll explain what that means in a second. So don't let that trip you up. Remember they're together. Okay, P means what? Parentheses. E means exponents. M is multiply. D is divide. A is add. S is subtract. That's fine. Go through the examples I did with you because you're going to have to do it for homework anyway. But so as I look at this, multiplying and dividing are on the same section. So once you get to multiplying and dividing, you go from left to right. Same with adding, subtracting. They're the same. Listen up. They're the same category, so you go from left to right. And I want to do a couple of these with you because you guys have done order of operation a ton, but I still see mistakes. Okay, if I look at number 2, yeah, 2's fine. Actually, let's look at 1. Let's look at 1. Sorry, 1 looks a little harder. Okay, if I look at 1, let's do number 1 first. So if I look at 1, I noticed, let's look at parentheses. Start with P. Do I have parentheses?
Yeah.
How do I simplify parentheses? Which is what?
Subtraction.
Yeah, 9 minus 2?
6.
7. It's all good. Okay, so do your parentheses first. 9 minus 2 is 7. Well, it's not all good because it's wrong, but that's okay. You tried. Okay, so plus 12 over 4. Now, if you want to do your, what's these 2 parallel bars mean?
You can add the plus bars.
No.
I don't know.
Absolute value.
Yeah.
So, be careful. They're not parentheses. We're not going to distribute the negative in front. What is the absolute value of a negative 5? Positive 5, but I still have that random negative out front. So the square root of a negative 5 becomes a positive, but there's still that negative in front. So be careful with absolute value. Okay, next thing is exponents. How do I get rid of my exponents? Do it. Right, okay. 2 to the third?
8.
It's not 6. It's not 2 times 3. It's 2 times 2 times 2. Cube, not cube root it. Cube it. 2 to the third is 8. So 8 times 7 plus 12 over 4 minus 5. Now, if you can kind of combine some steps, that's okay, but I want to make sure we can do it. So on the notes, I'm showing you every step, but if you can kind of combine, that's fine, since you've already seen it before. Next thing, I have multiply, divide, and then the subtracting 5. Multiply and divide from left to right. So we start from left to right. I multiply 8 times 7. Use a calculator if you're not good with multiplication. 56. 12 divided by 4.
33.
And then minus 5. And now we have adding to subtracting left, so you go from left to right. 56 plus 3,
54.
59.
Yeah.
Minus 5, 54. Okay. Questions on that? One more example. Okay, flip it to the back. Let's do one where we have to plug numbers in. Let's look at 5. You do it the same way, except you plug numbers in first, but you do it the exact same way.
Wait, can we do 6?
5's harder, so I want to do 5. Okay, if I look at 5, let's look at 5. So plug them in. This is called evaluating it, so just plug it in. 7, C is -4, so -4 squared. Be careful with that negative, because I'm squaring -4, so that negative goes in parentheses. Plus 5 divided by 4 times 1 minus -5. Be careful with the negatives. 4a minus b. 4 times 1 minus b, which is a -5. So minus -5. Any questions on the plugging in part? Okay, now order of operations. I see parentheses, but is there really anything in the parentheses to simplify? No, they're already simplified down to a single number. Now let's do exponents. -4 squared.
60.
Now, on your calculator, I see this mistake all the time. If you are squaring a negative, you have to put the negative in parentheses. So -4 squared. Don't just type a -4 squared, because it's going to give you -16. -4 has to be in parentheses. So that's positive 16. So 7 times 16 plus 5. You can go ahead and simplify the bottom if you want to. 4. And that's going to become
4 plus 5.
minus a -5 plus plus. So plus 5. And then we can multiply on top. 7 times 16. I wouldn't know off the top of my head. Use calculator.
A big number.
What is it? 112 plus 5 over 9. If you want to add, that's fine. 4 plus 5. 112 plus 5 divided by 9. 13. So we're spending some time reviewing before we get into second semester the new stuff, and I'm okay with that because I'm assuming you lost some of this over summer break. Any questions on that? I was waiting for someone to do that, and you had to be the one person. Thank you. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. So go ahead. Your homework, it's on this packet. So your homework is to finish the equations or finish the problems we didn't do in the notes. So what I want you to finish for now, and we'll see what time we get out here at 12:10. So you have about a half hour. We may do notes if everyone is finishing it. We may go back and finish some notes. But I want you to finish up through number 6 on this back page. So finish up through there. So finish the questions we didn't do in class as notes, and finish the problems up to translating equations and inequalities. Okay? Any questions?
No.
Okay, so that's your homework. Now, I do not care if you listen to music. That is fine. However, I do not want you on YouTube. We wasted too much time last year trying to find music on YouTube. There's a ton of... there's an app on your Chromebook. If you type Play, like Google Play, you can get music that way. Use Spotify, use Pandora. There's tons of different things. I don't want you on YouTube, and I'm going to be annoying about it. So you'll get one warning, and then after that, I'm going to get you up if you're on YouTube. So you can listen to music, that is fine, but we wasted too much time last year trying to find songs, and it was annoying to me, so we're not going to do it. Okay? So, there's that. So if you need help finishing the ones that we didn't do in class, let me know. Same thing as last year. When you get done, or if you get done with the section and want to have us check it, we will check it and circle the ones you got wrong. So I'm literally willing to check it before you turn it in. It's a pretty good deal. Okay? So that's the plan. Any questions? Okay.
6 times 7 is 42. 42.